Welcome to part 5 of this tweak development series. In this video, I'm going to cover how we can tweak views in iOS. If you're new to Apple's UIKit, don't be. Apple has excellent developer documentation and I've linked it in the description below. In short though, UIKit is a developer library with lots of classes to work with. It's responsible for most of the on-screen stuff you see in iOS, and if you've developed for iOS before, you're probably familiar with a lot of these classes already. UIKit contains a lot of standard iOS components, and we'll take a look at a few in the demo later in the video. Another thing that would be good to know is how important inheritance is in UIKit. For example, because the class UIView has a property called frame, any class that inherits from UIView will also have a frame property, even if it isn't explicitly declared in the interface. And the reason I say that is because just about everything in UIKit inherits from another class in UIKit. It's just something to keep in mind, and it's great to understand. So, to start changing views, we can hook the CC/UI module collection view controller class, which is part of Springboard. This is the class responsible for showing the control center on our device. In the control center, there are modules like the volume and brightness sliders, and those modules can be retrieved as an NS dictionary with this code. As you can see, the modules are stored as an NS dictionary inside of the module container view by identifier instance variable. If we write just a few more lines of code, we can add each key from the dictionary to the description string on line 4, and then we can use a UI label to see the string later. We can look at the description string by adding a gray view to the screen with a label on top of it. Then we can start to reverse engineer how Apple has set up the modules in the control center. We can see that each module has a module ID as a key. Here's what the dictionary would look like if we had dumped the keys and the values. The keys are NS strings with the module ID, and the values are instances of CC/UI content module container view. By following the UIKit naming convention, we can guess that a CC/UI content module container view probably inherits from a UI view eventually, and if we look at the class interface, we'd be right. This code might look a little bit intimidating at first, but just wait. We're using the same code to grab the modules dictionary and the same code to loop through each object in the dictionary. Except now, on line 16, we're setting the background color of each of the container views. Cool, but what does that look like? Well, it looks like trash, but you get the idea. We're looping through all of the modules inside of the control center and setting the background color of that view to red. So let's go put this together in a demo tweak and add some more flair to it. Alright, this is definitely going to be one of the longer demo videos, but that's fine because we have a lot to cover. First things first, we're going to head over to developer.lemnios.net, and their homepage is a giant list of frameworks available on iOS, both public and private. You can see stuff like Springboard, AVKit, ARKit, I'm sure there's some other stuff in here too, App Store Daemon, App Store UI, but what we're interested in is Control Center UI. And this framework contains all of the user interface classes that go into the control center. So anything that you see in the control center is probably happening in here. But we're interested in two classes because we want to recreate that red background view. And those classes are CC/UI content module container view and CC module collection view controller right here. So now that we have both of those header files opened, you can start writing your tweak. All right. So let's go ahead and create the new project. Call it module views. And even though we saw Control Center UI, we are still going to be working with the Springboard process. So we leave these as default again. And then open that in a text editor. Cool. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy the interfaces. And that's just so everything's consolidated in our code. It also serves a functional purpose, but I just like to see it. And we know we're going to be working with this instance variable. This is the instance variable that I covered in that short before. So I'm going to declare that at the top. This doesn't actually do anything for Theos, but it lets us know where this instance variable belongs. And we want to hook this class. And the reason we want to hook this class is because this class inherits from a UIViewController, and UIViewController has a few methods that'll help us out. One of them is called viewWillAppear. And this is called right before the view is shown on the screen, which gives us a chance to change the views however we want. So we will be using this method. Again, this isn't actually doing anything because this class inherits from UIViewController, which has this class already, but we're just showing that it exists. So if I paste this method here, we can begin to rewrite it. Before anything happens, we want to run the code that was in there before, so that's what the %ORIG is for. And now we can start writing the exact same code that was in the short before. I don't know what to call that. It's not a short. Oh well. All right. And because Objective-C is awesome, we can actually do a for loop that loops through each of the objects in the dictionary. And to do that, we just do for NSString key in is the keyword there, module dictionary. And so now for each object inside of the dictionary, we'll get a key, and we can use that key to retrieve the value. So let's do that in this line. And the reason I'm using ID is because we can't guarantee that all of the objects in the module dictionary are going to be what we expect them to be, which is this class. So I set them as IDs so we don't get any type conflicts. But we do need to make sure that it is this class before we do anything to it. Because if it was, say, an NS string inside of the dictionary, and we tried to set the background color of a string, that doesn't make sense, and it could cause issues if you were doing it with something else. So it could crash the device and respring it, send them into safe mode. And users don't want that. They'll just uninstall your tweak, so make sure you write safe code. So to write safe code, we're going to do an if statement here. If val is member of class, and we want to check if it's this class. All right. And this is actually a class method. Might not really look like one, but it's still a class method. So we need the %c with parentheses around the class name. And now any code that we put inside of this if statement will run only if val is of type CCUI content module container view. So now we can do something like val set background color, UI color, red color, and we can guarantee that it won't crash. And set background color is provided by UIView, by the way. So if we install that onto our phone and we restart our device manually, or respring rather, and we pull up the control center, we can see that all of the modules are red, just like we expected. All right, but I'm not here just to do the same thing twice. So we're gonna add some flair to this. I want a new method called random color. And so that each module in the control center will be set to its own unique color, just for fun. right. Now, I haven't actually covered how we can create a new method with Theos. Normally in iOS, you would just write the method like this. However, in Theos, we have to use logos and add a %new on top of it so that Theos knows that we're not trying to hook a random color, because random color doesn't exist. Another thing we need to do is tell Theos that this method exists in the interface. So I like to separate them from the hooked methods. So I'm going to do a comment with %new. And then we just do the same method signature at the top. And so now this will work, assuming we actually implement this code. So let me do that real quick. This is going to return a random number between 0 and 255 3 times. So we have an R, a G, and a B value. All right. And then we need to return a UI color. So color with red, R over 255.0F. And the reason I'm doing division here is because this expects a value between 0 and 1, not 0 and 255. And the reason this .0f is here is because we want to do float division, not integer division. If we did integer division, it would return 0 or 1, nothing in between. So we do green, we do the exact same thing, 255.0f. Blue, you guessed it. And finally, it expects an alpha. We're just going to leave it as 1 so that we always get a solid color. And now this should work. All right, cool. So that compiled. I'm not going to show it yet because that'd just take up time. Instead, we're going to keep going. We're going to create a UI view on the screen. And a UI view is basically just a rectangle. You can set the background color, you can set the frame of it, so you can change the size, the location of it, all that stuff. So let's call it new view. And initialize it with a frame. And we want it to be at x0, y0, and we want the width and height to be 250. Cool. So I'm going to set the background color to a random color. And I think that's about it, actually. Okay, so now we have a new view that exists in memory, not on our screen. It doesn't actually show up yet. But we have initialized a new view, and it has a background color that is random. Great. Another thing that you can do with UI views is you can embed another view into them. So we're going to do that with a button. We're going to create a UI button, call it new button. And this button is going to go inside of our new view. You'll see what that looks like in a second. To create a button, it's a little bit different. You should do UI button, button with type. UI button type system, I think. And this should be the default button. It's just blue text. And we're also going to set the text. So to do that, we do set title, press me, for state, UI control state normal. And these are both values that exist in UIKit. They're enumerators, so just think of them as values. Okay. Now we need to set the frame of the button because we never actually got a chance to do that like we did with the UI view. So we do new button, set frame, new view dot frame. So we're just going to recycle the frame that we used here because we want the button to go inside the view. So this means that the button will have x of 0, y of 0, width 250, height 250. All right. Again, these both exist in memory, but they're not on the screen. So let's put them on the screen. So to do that, we write some really ugly code. UI application shared application key window. And normally you would grab the root view controller and then grab the view of that and then add the views to this view. However, the control center is a little bit weird and it acts more like a scroll view, and you can't just add views to scroll views. So what I did instead is added it to the key window. And the key window it's the highest window on the screen. So it basically guarantees that our view will show up and it will be the topmost element. So we add the new view, and you can see we didn't add the button. The button still isn't on the screen yet. However, we can do new view, add subview, new button, and now just by adding the new view, it adds the new button and the new view. Okay. But this button should do something. It shouldn't just be a functionless button. So to add functionality to it, we can do new button, add target, self, action, selector, did press button with a colon, and for control events, UI control event touch up inside. All right, so this is saying whenever we press the button, that's what this is. Whenever we press the button, run this method, and this method belongs to self, or CCUI module collection view controller. All right, so we actually need to create another new method because did press button doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and do that. %new. Now this is going to return nothing, so we do void did press button, and because we pass that colon at the end, it will pass the button itself to this method. So we can do UI button. Usually it's called sender. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it arg1. And now any code we put in here will run whenever we touch the button. So I want the button to change the background color of the view every time it's pressed. So you would expect something like this. But new view isn't accessible from this method because new view was declared inside of view will appear, and it doesn't exist outside of that. So this is a scope issue, and we just need to fix that by placing it outside of the hook. And now our entire tweak can access this new view. So we just fill it in right there again. New view is equal to the same thing. And because we're writing safe code, we're going to check if the view has already been initialized. Because if it's already been initialized, we don't want to reinitialize it because that's just wasted memory. So we're going to do if new view is equal to nil, then create the view. And you can actually shorten this to !new view. So this is saying if the new view doesn't exist, make it exist. All right. And now we can actually use new view down here because it exists throughout our entire tweak. So that should work. Let's cross our fingers. All right, everything's looking good. We restart or respring. And now we should see not only that the modules are random colors, we should also see a new view and a button. Cool. So all of our modules are different colors now, and we have this rectangle or square at the top left corner with a button in it that says press me. And every time we press it, it changes the color of the background. Pretty cool. Okay, so let's add another view. This time we're going to add an image view. So UI image view, we're going to do a Bob image view. UI image view alloc, init with image, and we don't have an image yet, but we're going to create one. Now, this is a little bit unfortunate. Theos is kind of in a weird spot right now, I think. It seems like copying resources, like images and stuff, is not deprecated, but it's not working in the way it used to work. So we have to do something a little bit ugly, and that means we have to hard code our own paths, but that's okay because we can guarantee the paths exist, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So we're going to create a new Bob image, and this is going to be an image with contents of file, and here's where we pass the hard-coded path. Usually this is very looked down upon because directories change over time. Also, in the next iOS version, they might totally block application support, and that would cause issues in your tweak. But for right now, we're just trying to make it work, and this makes it work. So we're just going to hard code the path. This folder doesn't exist yet, but we're going to make it exist. And this image doesn't exist yet, but we're going to make it exist. And we can pass init with image Bob image. And then we can set a few more things on the image view, like the frame. We want the X to be 0, so it's on the far left. We want the Y to be 250, so that it comes after our new view. And the width and height are going to stay 250 as well. And lastly, we just need to add it to the view. Bob image view. All right, I think that's about it. Next, we need to create the bobsaget.png image, and we also need to change some stuff in our make file. So let's hop over to the make file. This right here, after install, it's part of the template for creating new Theos projects, but it doesn't work, so we can just delete it. You can actually see that it doesn't work right here. Command not found. And instead, we can replace it with internal stage. Now, I'm not too familiar on what this is, but from what I've gathered, it is a section where commands can be run when your package is being built. So what I mean by that is we can copy images and stuff into our tweak.deb file inside of internal stage. So we're just going to write straight up bash commands here. We can do make dir p, and then we can make sure that the folder exists, moduleviews.bundle, and that's what we called it over here. So now this folder, definitely exists, but this image is still not there. So to make the image exist, we're going to copy resources, which we'll make in just a second. Everything inside of the resources folder will be copied, and we want to copy it to the moduleviews.bundle folder. All right. And there's actually one more thing we need to add. As of right now, I believe this will get confused and it will try to make this folder on your computer. But we don't want that. We want it to make the folder on our device. So we will put a $sign in parentheses. This is just calling an environment variable. And we do Theos staging directory. All right. And we need this for both of them. That way it knows that it's putting this folder on our device. And I think that's actually about it. All we need to do now is create this resources folder and put content inside of it. So new folder, resources. Let's open Finder. We copy bobsaget.png, and we open up the resources folder, and we paste them right there. And now, if we make package install, and we go to our packages folder, this package folder is where your .deb file is built. We extract it with the unarchiver. And we extract the data. You can actually see that there's a folder in here called application support, and there's a moduleviews.bundle. I don't know how Theos does this, but it recognizes that there is a resources folder and it builds the bundle for us. So now we can show package contents and we can actually see that Bob Saget is inside of the .bundle. So that's good enough for me. I know that it's being installed on the device. So if I restart Springboard again, and we open the control center, we now have everything we expected. We have an image of Bob Saget being pulled from a hard-coded path, which again is probably not the best of practices, but it works. And we also have the new view up. Oh. We also have the new view up there that changes the background color every time we press it. All right, so I think that just about wraps it up. There's a ton of stuff in UIKit that you can mess around with. There's UI labels, UI progress views, UI sliders, UI windows, all kinds of stuff. There's even UI long press gesture recognizers. And what these do is they basically check if you're holding something. So if you wanted to add functionality that restarts Springboard if you hold your finger on Bob Saget, you could do that with UI long press gesture recognizer. All right, so like I said, pretty sure that sums it up. I hope you learned at least one thing from this video. There was a lot to cover. If you liked it, you know how to like it. If you have any questions, comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks a ton. I'll see you in the next one.